Today on Commander Replay, Ghalta is the last dinosaur. He is my friend and so much more. Can he take us to a place we've never seen before? Find out next on Commander Replay. Hello everyone, welcome back to Dinosaur Week. We are playing some Ghalta Primal Hunger today. Let's take a look at our opening hand. We have card draw, we have Realm Seekers, but no ramp, so I think we're going to mulligan that one. This looks a little bit better. We have a Survival of the Fittest and an Explosive Vegetation, so we can go ahead and keep this one. We have some nice stuff at the top end in Vorinclex and Craterhoof. Also, the Sword of Vengeance, I'm pretty excited to get down. Ooh, there's an Omnath in this game. Omnath is a card that needs to be in this deck. I unfortunately did not include Omnath. It definitely seems like it should be in this deck. We'll call that a deck building error. Wayfarer's Bauble for the Eily opponent. And we find a Solemn Simulacrum. Not bad. We do need to find another land or two, though. And a Mulch for the Teneb opponent. They're going to get to reveal the top 4 cards of their library, put all land cards revealed this way into your hand, and the rest into your graveyard. That's a card that I could get down with right now. Alright, so we draw a third land. Third land is good. Let's get that down, and let's play the Survival of the Fittest. Depending on what happens next turn, we may need to discard one of these bigger guys just to get something to ramp our lands. Nature's Lore for the Omnath opponent. Wood Elves coming into play for the Teneb opponent. Let's take a look at who we're playing today. We're playing Ghalta Primal Hunger. It is 10 green for a 12/12 with Trample. Ghalta costs X less to cast, where X is the total power of creatures you control. Ghalta is really big, has Trample, and has a cost reduction mechanic on it. So it's going to be much easier to get Ghalta into play than actually paying the 12 mana for it. I'm actually really excited to play the Ghalta deck. Even though it's just kind of a big dumb green creature that has a cost reduction mechanic on it, I'm still just really excited about smashing face with Ghalta. Hitting someone for 12 just seems like a lot of fun. So the Eily opponent plays a Zulaport Cutthroat and a Blood Artist. Ew. All of the death triggers. So we'll play the Forest. We're going to activate the Survival of the Fittest. I think we can live without the Vorinclex. Maybe we can live without the Craterhoof. I mean, if we cast the Craterhoof with Ghalta out and 1 or 2 other creatures, the game probably just ends. I'll pitch the Vorinclex. Vorinclex doesn't usually last around the board. Someone usually blows it up before it ever comes back to your turn. I'm gonna go with the Gyre Sage right here, because we need to get some mana ramp going. And Gyre Sage should help us do that nicely into Ghalta. We just need to find our next land, and life will be good. Growing Rites of Itlimoc for the Omnath opponent. So this is the first deck I'm playing that actually has a Growing Rites of Itlimoc in it, and I'm pretty excited about it. Hopefully we get to use it at some point. So if you control 4 more creatures, you can transform Growing Rites of Itlimoc, and if you do, you basically get Gaia's Cradle on the back, so pretty sweet. Gerard's Orders for the Teneb opponent. Good card. Search your library for up to 2 creature cards, 1 into the graveyard, 1 into your hand. Then shuffle your library. Not a bad deal. So opponent puts a Runescar Demon into the graveyard and a Viscera Seer into their hand, which they just played. So they have a Viscera Seer and a Wood Elves out. Looks like the Teneb opponent is set up pretty good. They got decent lands going. I think Teneb will be coming down next turn as long as they find a land drop. Obsidat Ghost Council coming into play. Back to our turn, and we draw the land. Sweet. So Obsidat leaves play, goes into exile. He's going to start doing its thing. So we catch the land. Very nice. Then we will play the Solemn Simulacrum. So we get an Evolve trigger, and we get the Solemn Simulacrum trigger. So get another Forest into play. We have 4 total power of creatures. Let's just do a little check. Ghalta still cost 8. Still have a little ways to go on that. No real reason to attack with our Gyre Sage. We'll just stay back in defense. Ooh, and a Gaia's Cradle for the Omnath opponent. So Omnath into play, and Sakura Tribe Elder coming down. Interesting promo art. Haven't seen that one before. So let's take a look at what our opponents are actually playing. First up, we have Omnath Locus of Mana. Is 2 and a green for a 1/1. Green mana doesn't empty from your mana pool as phases and steps end. Omnath gets +1/+1 for each green mana in your mana pool. So Omnath, usually green good stuff deck, gonna generate tons of mana, make a really big Omnath, and then follow it up with some of the big green heavy hitters like Avenger of Zendikar, Craterhoof Behemoth, things like that. Next up, we have Teneb the Harvester, is 3 black-green-white for a 6/6 flying. When it deals combat damage to a player, you may pay 2 and a black. If you do, put target creature from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So Teneb going to be a Reanimator style deck. Commander deck that I've had in the past. I've been meaning to put my paper one back together, I just haven't gotten around to it. He's a sweet commander. I tend to prefer Teneb over Carador just because I like having the ability to get there with commander damage if I need to, and Carador doesn't really give you that option. Teneb is a big flying threat in addition to getting you creatures back, and you can do it from any graveyard, which I like. Probably my favorite dragon from the Planar Chaos cycle. And then finally we have Eily Eternal Pilgrim is white-black for a 2/3 with Death Touch. Pay 1 to sacrifice another creature. If you do, you gain life equal to the sacrificed creature's toughness. You may pay 3, sacrifice another creature, exile target non-land permanent. Activate this ability only if you have at least 10 more life than your starting life total. So, gonna be some sort of black life gain, sacrifice kind of deck. I've run into Eily a bunch of times, and it never really seems to perform all that well. We'll see what happens in this game. But it just seems like the Eily decks never really get going. I don't know if it's a problem with the commander itself, or if I'm just facing poorly built Eily decks. Let me know if any of you guys have played Eily, and what your experience has been. Opposite that Ghost Council coming into play, gonna hit us for 2 life. Wall of Omens for the Eily opponent, gonna get to draw a card. So Eily Eternal Pilgrim coming into play. The Eily opponent has built up quite a board state. Number of creatures in play. Blood Artist, Zulaport Cutthroat, Obsidian Ghost Council, and the Wall of Omens. Obsidian is going to swing into the Omnath opponent. Sounds good to me. We'll probably get blocked by the Sakura Tribe Elder and do the whole block sack, get a land kind of thing. Oh, opponent decides to take it. I bet that was a misclick. There is one problem I just thought about, which is that there's a Vorinclex in our graveyard, and this Teneb the Harvester has the ability to pull Vorinclex out of our graveyard. So there is a reasonable chance that I tutor for an Eldrazi to cycle our graveyard back into our library, so that does not happen. There's a forest. Forests are good. So play the land. I'm going to play this Explosive Vegetation. Nothing we can really do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cycle our graveyard in response to the Teneb trigger. So I'm just going to hold up some mana to do that. We'll need to cycle twice. The Carnivorous Dinosaur, a paper published in 2005, details recovered fossils in which an Allosaurus attacked a Stegosaurus. The Allosaurus had a large spike wound in its back, and the Stegosaurus had a large U-shaped bite mark missing from it. Both of them had a really bad day. As far as the new cycle of dinosaurs go, I think I like the art on Ghalta the best. It's the most natural looking dinosaur in my opinion. The other ones are pretty stylized, whereas Ghalta just looks like a big theropod of some sort, possibly an Allosaurus. Opponent discussing the finer points of what happens when you try to blink your commander on Magic Online, where if it goes to the command zone and whether it comes back to the battlefield properly. I have no idea if it does or does not. I feel like some effects work the way you want them to and others don't. So pass the turn. Oh, I see. Looks like opponent was trying to hold up creatures for the Guy's Cradle, and also possibly trying to flip the Growing Rights of Itlamok. That would make sense. Deserted Temple, gonna untap the Guy's Cradle. Sounds good to me. So Omnath now pretty big. It's a 7/7. Oh, and opponent's gonna play a Mycoliths. Omnath shrinks down to a 2/2. Wow, gonna sacrifice all their creatures. And Mycolith is an 8/8. How about that? And opponent's gonna get to create a 1/1 green Saproling for each +1/+1 counter on Mycolith. Ooh. That would not be a terrible card in this deck. Has decent amount of power and gets bigger based on what you sack. Will make a bunch of tokens, also putting more power on the board. It would not surprise me if you cast a Mycolith on turn 5 and you were able to cast Ghalta on turn 6. So Teneb the Harvester gonna swing into the Omnath opponent. It's good for us. We'll do the survival of the fittest thing with Teneb's ability on the stack. Omnath opponent not super happy that everyone's attacking them. Yeah, Omnath's pretty strong, has a tendency to win the game pretty quickly. I definitely get it. Teneb the Harvester trigger going onto the stack. So we're gonna cycle Survival of the Fittest, drop this Craterhoof Behemoth, get another creature. So we're gonna get Kozilek, Butcher of Truth. Then we're gonna Survival of the Fittest again, discard the Kozilek, shuffle everything back into our library. So I think we're gonna be able to make a really sweet line of play right here. I'm gonna get Verdurous Gearhulk. And so we're going to play the Verdurous Gearhulk, put the 4/+1/+1 counters on Gyre Sage, plus the Evolve trigger, which would give us a huge boost of mana. Should hopefully make Ghalta the minimum casting cost. At that point, I hope we have mana left over for Garruk and Sword of Vengeance, which should be pretty sweet. And that's a Fleshbag Marauder coming down. That will take down the Mycolith, which is good. And we'll sacrifice our Solemn Simulacrum so we can draw a card. This will get rid of one of the creatures for the Eily as well. Eily had quite a few small creatures on the battlefield, so just kind of clearing out some of the mess will be a good idea. Eily decides to sacrifice a creature in response. Not sure if they realize they'll have to sacrifice another creature based on the way sacrifice rules work. You can't sacrifice the same creature to something twice. So we're going to sacrifice the Solemn Simulacrum. Opponent's going to sacrifice their Zulaport Cutthroat. Sounds good to me. Glad to get rid of one of those. And a bunch of Blood Artist and Zulaport Cutthroat triggers on the stack, as well as our Solemn Simulacrum. So use the Solemn Simulacrum. draw into a forest. Lands are good. We want to keep making land drops with this deck. You never really want to miss a land drop. So Obsidian Ghost Council coming back into play. The Eiley opponent's up to 58, so the Eiley deck is performing much better than I thought it would have. And that also puts them online for the exile target non-land permanent ability, which seems pretty good. Karmic Guide for the Eiley opponent. Gonna get something back. Goes for the Wall of Omens. So they're low on cards in hand. Looks like they're trying to get the card draw going. Fortunately, they need 3 mana to be able to activate Eiley for the exile ability. Obsidian Ghost Council coming into us. We're just gonna have to take that one. Definitely want to keep our Gyre Sage alive. Ooh, and a Sol Ring. Nice. So let's see what we can do. Drop our forest, play the Sol Ring, play the Verdurous Gearhulk. So the Gyre Sage will evolve first, and then the Verdurous Gearhulk will add the counters. So this should give us a nice mana boost. Wow. 6 counters on the Gyre Sage now. So now we can cast Ghalta for 2. Commander! We'll get another Evolve trigger on the Gyre Sage. And while everyone is just about tapped out, let's see how much mana we have left. We have 10 mana. Oh, man. So it would take 11 mana to get this Garruk down, draw the cards, and get the Sword of Vengeance down. So what I think we do is we Garruk first. So we'll draw with Garruk, and we draw 12 cards. Oh, yeah. We will have to do some discarding. So we didn't catch the Mana Crypt like I was hoping. Mana Crypt would have allowed us to play the Sword of Vengeance and equip the Sword of Vengeance. It wasn't to be. I think we play this Wayward Swordtooth. So we can now play an additional land. We'll play the Cavern of Souls, naming Dinosaur. And then we'll cast the Nissa's Pilgrimage. We do not have Spell Mastery, so we only get 2 lands out of the deal. One goes into play, one into our hand. But that was a pretty good turn. We got a bunch of really big creatures out of the deal, and we drew a whole bunch of cards. I like our position right now. We'll discard the extra lands. Always find plenty more lands in our deck. This Tectonic Edge is going to help against the Gaia's Cradle, Growing Rights of Itlimoc onslaught that our opponent is. Although I am a little bit nervous that we're going to get exiled pretty hard by this Eiley. Teneb is also a deck that likes to run a lot of board wipes, so I'm not sure how long our stuff is going to stay on board. Interesting, we get this City's Blessing emblem when we have City's Blessing. First time I've seen that. Interestingly, we pumped the Gyre Sage up so much with the Verdurous Gearhulk that it's going to be difficult for us to trigger the Evolve ability now. But still, when you're tapping for 7 additional mana, that's a pretty good deal. Omnath coming back into play. Actually, we also have this Terastodon to deal with. Gaia's Cradle, Growing Rights of Itlimoc, Volrath's Stronghold can be really problematic. Teneb the Harvester swinging into us. I think we probably made ourselves the new threat in the game. I mean, if no removal happens, we can Survival of the Fittest into Craterhoof Behemoth and probably end the game. Although Eiley might have something to say about that with their removal on a stick ability. Teneb the Harvester chooses the Runescarred Demon. Yeah, that's a card. That will give them the ability to... Looks like they'll have enough mana open for a board wipe. They have a decent board position as well, so I'm not entirely sure if they go for the board wipe or not, but we'll see what happens. I have to say, Wayward Swordtooth looks like a pretty ridiculous card in Commander. 3 mana, 5/5, play an additional land on each of your turns, can't attack or block unless you have City's Blessing. There are a lot of good green cards that care about creatures' power, and you can really abuse them because Wayward Swordtooth is going to come down so early. Disciple of Bolas for the Teneb opponent. Looks like they're probably trying to get some card draw going. The good news is that they're tapped out. So Eiley decides to sacrifice a creature. They're going to sacrifice the Karmic Guide, since they probably don't feel like paying the Echo cost on it. Karmic Guide, interesting card. Really good card, but to actually keep it in play for that second turn is really expensive, and it's not something that actually happens all that often. Its purpose is more about bringing things back from the graveyard, and if it ends up in the graveyard itself, you find a way to pull it out and start the whole daisy chain of reanimating creatures out of the graveyard. Yeah, you can definitely do some interesting things with Karmic Guide from the graveyard. So the worst thing that Eiley could do would be hold up mana. Gift of Immortality on the Wall of Omens. Interesting. Looks like opponent's still trying to draw more cards. Lightning Greaves for the Eiley opponent. Puts it on the Eiley. Eiley has 3 mana open. Exactly enough to cause us problems. So the good news is Eiley can't sacrifice it to itself to activate the ability. What I think we do right here, we play the Azuri's Predation, which will force the Eiley to use their exile ability if they're going to use it. Hopefully they'll use it on Ghalta. If they do, we can then cheaply recast Ghalta since we'll have a bunch of creatures left in play. And then we Survival of the Fittest for Craterhoof Behemoth and hopefully win the game. I'm going to start by playing our 2 lands per turn. So we'll get the Forest and the Tectonic Edge. So first thing up is trying this Azuri's Predation. Opponent is going to sacrifice with their Viscera Seer. Gonna get to scry. It's going to put a Blood Artist trigger on the stack. So going to hit us with the Blood Artist trigger. Oh, nice! Eiley goes for the life gain and not for the exile ability, so we are in good shape now. They said, oh, whoops. Opponents were saying Ghalta is such a versatile commander. I've seen him built as an elf tribal. Versatile, that's because he does nothing for the deck itself. He's just a fat beater. Interesting commentary on Ghalta. I don't know, sometimes it's fun to just have a really big creature, especially since it already has trample, which makes it not profitable to just block with the 1/1 token that you have lying around. The dinosaur depicted in the 1925 film Lost World is actually an Allosaurus, not a Tyrannosaurus Rex, as many people think. Bunch of triggers trying to resolve. Definitely a misplay by Eiley. Definitely at least tried to exile something. Not saying we wouldn't have been able to play around it, but it would require us significantly more mana to do it. So, Azuri's Predation. Nope, not quite yet. Gonna get another Viscera Seer trigger. And another Blood Artist trigger. And one more Viscera Seer trigger. Alright, so Azuri's Predation finally resolves. We end up with 2 tokens out of the deal, ends up wiping Eiley's board, couple Blood Artist triggers on the stack. Omnath goes down, and now everyone's tapped out. There's 1 green floating, and which will go away when we go into the combat step, and 1 open mana from the Eiley opponent, which I really hope isn't a Swords or a Path, because that's going to make things miserable. The next question is... We have 12 right there. We'd pay 8. We'd have 4 left over. 8. No, that's not going to be enough to do the Craterhoof things that we want to do. We don't have enough mana to get Vorinclex and Craterhoof Behemoth down, unfortunately. But what we can do... So, Survival of the Fittest. Discard the Scavenging Ooze. Grab the Craterhoof Behemoth. Oh, we had 2 mana left over from the Sol Ring. We could have cast the Vorinclex and the Craterhoof. Well, that's disappointing. Craterhoof comes in. Gonna make everything really big. And so Omnath just scoops it up. We wouldn't be able to kill all 3 players because the Eiley is at 80 life. How much damage do we have? I actually don't even know if we have enough to kill Eiley. We should definitely kill the Teneb deck because they probably have a lot of gas. Oh, Craterhoof doesn't give haste. That's unfortunate. I thought Craterhoof gave haste for... Craterhoof has haste itself, does not give haste to the other creatures. That's what happens when you don't play that many green decks. Forget little things like that. That's okay, though. Actually, oh yeah, we can do this. So we'll send these 3 into the Teneb opponent, and we'll send Ghalta into the Eiley opponent, and that'll put 19 commander. We won't even have to worry about their life total. We can just get there with commander damage. So Teneb the Harvester going down to combat damage, and we'll finally cast our Sword of Vengeance. We'll leave open a green just in case we need to Survival of the Fittest for something. Pass the turn. So pretty good turn right there. We made a whole bunch of really big creatures, which is something that I wanted to do, and we swung in for a lot of damage. Let's see what our opponent's got. It's got to be something real big. Wrath of God would slow us down quite a bit. Opponent decides to recast their Eiley, puts the Lightning Greaves on the Eiley. We draw a Tranquil Thicket. We'll finally play the Mosswort Bridge, get a Hideaway trigger. We'll put Asceticism under there, why not? Seems like the best thing in there. Don't really need the Bane of Progress. Opponent only has 1 artifact out. We'll play the Tranquil Thicket and attack with everything. See if opponent's got some... Ooh, Comeuppance could be a blowout. Forgot about that one. Also Selfless Squire. So 1 block from our opponent. Doesn't look like they have anything. Nope, they have something. See what it is. They're going to exile Ghalta. Okay. That is okay. I don't think we're lethal now. No, we're most definitely not since our opponent's life total is so high. They do drop to 41. We recast our Ghalta for 2? Yeah, sounds good to me. We do get another Evolve trigger off the Gyrosage. One of the few creatures in our deck that can still trigger the Evolve trigger on Gyrosage. We'll equip the sword onto Ghalta, and then cast Vorinclex. Vorinclex should make it almost impossible for our opponent to get back into the game. Because even if they survive next turn, the mana that they use will then be gone to them the turn following that, so they basically almost lose a turn with Vorinclex out. Opponent says, good game! There it is! Ghalta Primal Hunger! The big mean green dino! Devouring our opponents for breakfast. So for the most part, this deck is just a green good stuff deck. Has a lot of the usual suspects that you would expect to find in any green deck. Some of the more interesting inclusions are Verdurous Gearhulk because of the amount of power that it puts on board. It'll make our Ghalta cheaper very quickly. Same thing with Wolfear Silverheart. If you soul bond it with another creature, they'll both be 8/8s, so you should very easily be able to cast your Ghalta after that. Those are probably the most interesting inclusions in the deck. Ronas the Indomitable also fits reasonably well into this deck. And Wayward Swordtooth also seems really, really good in this deck. And also probably just like a really good commander card going forward for any green ramp deck. We do have a Berserk and an Inquisitor's Flail because that makes Ghalta lethal in 1 swing, which is kind of fun. But other than that, everything else in the deck is pretty standard green good stuff, so nothing too crazy in there. A couple Eldrazi at the top, more for utility purposes. Being able to exile 2 permanents, and being able to shuffle our library or draw cards if we need to. They also give us another way to finish the game should something happen to Ghalta. I did intentionally take Avenger of Zendikar and Tooth and Nail out of the deck, just because I wanted to focus a bit more on Ghalta. Everyone knows that any green deck can win by casting Tooth and Nail, Avenger of Zendikar, and Craterhoof Behemoth. I didn't want the deck to just stumble into a win that way. I actually wanted Ghalta to play a part in what was going on. Granted, we did use the Craterhoof Behemoth, but the Craterhoof Behemoth does pair really well with Ghalta. So basically, I was just trying to avoid the free win that occurs when you play Tooth and Nail sometimes. So anyway, this has been Ghalta Primal Hunger. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. As always, feel free to comment, like, or subscribe. Thank you for watching.